on October 1st. And it is very important that you get your student to apply on time, because if you don't meet the priority deadline, it will impact the amount of financial aid that your student will receive. So as parents, I encourage you guys to keep track of keep track with your student of those important deadlines, so you don't miss them and are affected financially. The next important term that I want you guys to know is the cost of attendance, and this is the total cost of that a student is expected to face while attending college, and this is calculated by the financial aid by the FAFSA department, by the federal government. And there are two types of costs. The first one is the direct cost. That is the tuition and fees that the student has to pay, and there is no negotiating. It is a fixed cost. There are a couple of things that could affect um, the costs, the tuition. Amongst those would be if your student was an international student, if the student was out of state versus an in-state, even the type of major that they are choosing. But there's a calculator that you can find in uh, in UNT that will tell you. It's going to ask you a couple of questions, and it's going to help you figure out exactly how much money you can be expected to be charged for the major that your student and the amount of classes that they will be taking, because it varies a lot. Then we have the indirect costs, and these are the costs that are going to vary a lot, and it's on a case by case, uh, because it includes things like room and board, transportation, books, unexpected things. And this is just an estimate that the universities think that your student is going to need, but the number could be way higher or way lower depending on the spending habits of your student. And costs vary by each personal case. This is one of the things that make paying for college and understanding how much the actual price is complicated, because you have the direct costs, which can move higher or lower depending on those factors that I mentioned earlier, and then the indirect costs. And that is all included in the financial award letter. Then another term that is going to help us figure out how FAFSA, how federal aid works, is the expected family contribution. And this is a number that the federal government calculates, that is going to that is going to tell them how much money you, as the family, as the guardians of the student, can afford to give your student to help them with educational costs. And this number is derived from your tax returns. Every time you complete a FAFSA application, they require the guardians, the parents, to submit that information, so that the government has a good idea of how much money the parents make and how much money they need, because financial aid, the grants at least, are based on financial need, and this helps them determine your financial aid and your eligibility for it as well. So those are some of the terms, but what is the actual help that you receive as a student? What are the types of financial aid that you can receive? Well, financial aid, first of all, is money that is going to help you, and that's going to help your student pay for their direct and indirect costs of attending college. And here are a couple types of financial aid. The first one is scholarships, and we're going to cover each one in detail, but we have scholarships, grants, work study, and loans. So let's dive deeper into each one of these to understand the nuances of what each one is. First, we have the federal Pell Grant. And this is free money, just like a scholarship. The only difference is that a grant is not merit-based. Instead, it is need-based. And it is calculated through the expected family cost and the need of the student. And also enrollment status, cost of attendance, and those concepts that we went over earlier in the previous slides. And the maximum amount for the 21-22 cycle is $6,495. And like I said, it's free money, just like scholarships. But scholarships, they have a little bit more of conditions and criteria that you need to meet. And they tend to be more competitive. But at the end of the day, it's money that you don't have to pay back. And I can tell you guys that it is highly likely that your student is going to need scholarships, regardless of how much financial aid they need. I've seen a lot of cases, and the students that struggle the least paying for college are the ones that bother to apply for scholarships, the ones that receive some sort of scholarship. So I encourage you as a parent to sit down with your child and help them find their strengths, help them find a scholarship that they can apply to. There are two types of scholarships when you attend college. The first one is internal. These are all the scholarships that the university offers to the students. So depending on their major, depending on their department, the student needs to talk to their academic advisor and in their major, in their college, and see what types of scholarships they can apply to help them get through college, because they're gonna need them. The other type of scholarships are external. This is meaning outside of the university, whether they are through the private sector. Let's say, for example, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, all those companies that offer scholarships, and also non-profit scholarships. There's like the Gates Foundation. There's a lot of external scholarships. A lot of options for students. Here are a couple of websites that we recommend our students that when they come to our office about looking for scholarships. I'm gonna pause here for a quick second if you guys want to take a photo of some of these so you can go with your student and look at these scholarships and search for them. I want to highlight that UNT is it sort of forces students to apply for the general scholarship application. It is one of their tasks. They're on their to-do list when they on their portal, because students need the scholarship money. As you guys know, college is not it's not easy to pay for. And like I said, also a type of aid that is going to help you pay for college is paying out of pocket. Whether that is through your family support or personal support, aka a job, your income. There are two things that we have to highlight to students when they come to college, and that is that they need to meet two requirements to graduate from college. The first one is to get good grades and pass all of their classes, because if they don't do that, they're not gonna get through college. Their GPA is gonna drop. They're not gonna be able to enroll. They're gonna be dropped if they don't pass their classes. The second one is that they need to find funding for their education, because unfortunately the way the system is set up is that if you do not have money to pay for your classes and enroll for the next semester, you're not gonna be able to re-enroll for classes. And that is the harsh reality. So We're here to let students know that getting through college is not only an academic mental challenge, but unfortunately it's also a financial challenge. And that is the unfortunate reality. But there are, thankfully, there are a couple tools that students can use to help them finance these. The federal government has a program called a work study, which allows students to pay for their educational costs. Work studies are positions, are jobs that are on campus, and they are mandated to work around the schedule of the student. And since they are on campus and they're working with the students' class schedule, they're allowed to, that gives them a lot of convenience so that they can keep number one priority is to get with their studies. There are jobs working at the library, working at the recreational center. There are a lot of work studies positions. Some positions even allow students to live. They get compensated with room and board, such as the students that work at the residential halls. And here are a couple. This is one of the best ways to find and apply for work study positions at the University of North Texas. It's basically Handshake. It's a job searching engine, and there's a lot of filters. It's not only for on-campus work study jobs. It can also help you find jobs externally outside of the university in the private sector. A lot of times it lists where the places are, the requirements that they are looking for, the salaries, so the hourly rates. So that helps a lot. That helps a lot the students figure out what type of job they want, and to have them listed in front as a list. That helps a lot. So here's the website. The the next thing that we have are the federal direct loans. And for this section, I'm going to pass it back to Juan.
Okay, so oftentimes whenever students apply for financial aid, many of them they're going to receive grants, they're going to receive scholarships from different departments, from private parties, but oftentimes this money doesn't help fully cover the students' balance at the school. So sometimes they're going to have to be paying extra money, and sometimes that little extra they're going to have to be paying, it's kind of hard since many students don't get a lot of financial aid. Some students don't get a lot of financial aid. So what do they do at this point? So at this point, another option that is there for them is federal direct loans. So within the next slide, we're going to be talking about the kinds of loans that the federal government offers, and just the responsibilities, the qualifications that come from these loans. So three main loans we're going to be talking about is a subsidized loan, the unsubsidized loan, and then the Parent Plus loan, and then the Grad Plus loan. So yeah, and here's a website if you want to take a picture of it. There's more information regarding federal direct loans, the qualifications that you guys need to know about, and other important details. But here in this next slide, we're going to be talking about just comparing the different loans, the responsibilities, and everything important you guys need to know about. So loans, many students in college will have to borrow money eventually to finance their education. So a common resource students turn to are student loans. So what exactly is a student loan? So basically, a student loan is a type of aid that lets the student borrow money. That can be from the government, that can be from a private party like the bank, or some other lending institution. Loans must be paid back with added interest. Students should always, it is advised, we always advise students to borrow conservatively just accepting the amount that they need to pay their college. But after all, loans can be a lot of help for many students, but the more money the student borrows, the more money the student will have to pay back at the end of the day, and likely with a lot of interest accrued with the loans. So how are these loans offered to students or to the parents? Loans can be offered, based on financial need, such as the direct subsidized loan, or based on non-financial needs, such as the direct unsubsidized loan and the direct Pell Plus loan. The accepted family contribution does help determine the financial need of a student. So it's considered with the direct subsidized loan, its calculations, but not with the direct subsidized loan nor the Parent Plus loan. For need-based and non-need-based loans, loan eligibility will be determined after the grants, after the scholarships, and after federal work study programs have been considered from the university. Now, we're going to hop into talking about the different loans, as you see here on the screen, that are out there for students. The most common ones are the federal loans. So federal loans generally have the lowest interest rates and the fees, and the greatest repayment flexibility for students. So interest rates for new loans are established each year. So when evaluating loans, students can qualify for the subsidized and unsubsidized loans, or sometimes for both loans. So what's the difference between these two loans, the subsidized and the unsubsidized? So subsidized loans, if you don't already know, they are available only to undergraduate students. The amount that they can borrow is determined by the institution they're attending, the university they're attending. The amount may not exceed the student's financial need. The good thing about this loan is that the federal government does pay the interest, but students must be enrolled at least half-time in the university. The government also continues to pay the interest post-graduation for at least 6 months. This is referred to as a grace period. Basically, this grace period kind of gives students flexibility to figure out their financial situations within the next 6 months, getting that job that they need in order for them to, start paying these loans back. These are usually more beneficial for students, whereas the unsubsidized loan, the student is responsible for paying all interest for the unsubsidized. The unsubsidized loan is available to both undergraduates and graduate students. The school also determines the amount that is awarded. And then we have the Parent Plus loan. The government makes the direct plus loan eligible to parents through participating schools in the direct loan program. So to be eligible for this loan, you have to be the biological or the adopted parent of a dependent undergraduate student enrolled also at least half-time at an eligible school. You should not have an adverse credit history, but unless you meet certain additional requirements, and you must also meet the general eligibility requirements for the federal student aid. And then finally, we have our Grad Plus loan, which is only offered to graduate students. There's no credit check on this one, and students can borrow up to the cost of their attendance. The repayment for this loan also begins 6 months after the students graduates. So we encourage students to, basically, the federal student loans are very flexible for students, as mentioned, as I just mentioned, they have it's very flexible. They give them a flexible repayment period. So it's we advise them to first go to these loans, to the federal loans, before going to a private source, as these private sources aren't as flexible compared to the federal direct, student loans students can qualify for. Right.
Yeah, so as Juan mentioned, we always highlight to students to stay away from they have first exhausted all of their financing options, such as grant scholarships and all types of federal student loans options before they go for private loans, because the interest rate seems to be it's usually higher and they're less flexible. But when it comes to, for if a student is at that point where they need to look at private loans, we direct them to elmselect.com, and it's just basically has a list of different private lenders, but that's as far as we can help them when it comes to selecting a private loan. Because we don't want to choose favorites, and it wouldn't be legal and all that. Anyway, so everything that we have talked about today, it can be summarized in this food pyramid. It's not a food pyramid, but it works just like that. And it tells you the types of financial aid that you need to take in the best order, to the worst being at the highest. And here's the reasoning, just so that this is the main takeaway, that you want to start with grants and scholarships. As we mentioned earlier, this is free money that it doesn't have to be repaid. It's not your money, so it's even better. So that's how you want to start paying for college. Once you run out of that, you want to move to the next level, which is savings, college savings, and family support. Because this is money that you have already prepared, that you plan ahead, and you put this money away to be used for college. So you were prepared for these. But we understand that not everyone had the opportunity to save for money. So once, if you did not have money saved, you can move to the next step, which is work study and self-employment. And basically it's about the money that you can earn every day. That way you can start paying as you're earning for college, because it's not cheap. But if you find yourself in a situation where you need to start borrowing money that you may not have, then we move to level 4, which is federal subsidized loans. And these are the best types of loans when it comes to loans, because the interest rate is being subsidized by the federal government, and it doesn't have to be repaid until after graduation. But remember, it has to be repaid by the end of the day. So borrow just what you need to get by when it comes to this point. Then we have federal unsubsidized and parent plus loans. The rates tend to be a little bit more friendly, but at the end of the day, you still have to pay the interest rates. So try to avoid these. And finally, as we mentioned earlier, private student loans, which tend to have higher interest rates. So just like a food pyramid, this is how you want to go about paying for college. So now we're going to put everything that we learn into practice. This is how 21-22 cycle award letter looks like. This is a real case. Of course, we blur the name. But this is what a student sees when they decide how to pay for, when they get awarded their money and their costs. It is a lot of numbers, but the first thing that you want to do when you see this letter is to look at the costs. So we're going to break it down here. This is the planning in action. As we mentioned earlier, you have the direct and indirect costs. But when you're trying to figure out and you have all these numbers, to simplify things, you need to first focus on the direct costs. Because once you're given this letter, these numbers it's highly unlikely that they're not going to change at all, unless something happens, like you change your major, or it turns out that you were not an in-state, or you were actually an out-of-state student. Other than that, you're working with these fixated costs. So you want to take care first of these, because these are the ones that, this is your tuition. This is what is going to keep you enrolling classes. Everything else you can figure out as you go. But this is the main cost that you need to figure out first. And as you can see by this letter, it has been broken down where it says total direct costs. It has been broken down for the year. So usually this number divided by 2 will give you your total tuition per semester. For this student, the student was taking 12 credit courses, 12 credit hours, which is, it's around 4 classes, which is full-time for a student. So they're paying $6,242 per semester. So you got the number down. The next thing that you want to look at once you get your award letter is at your financial aid. How much money you're getting awarded. And as you can see, it can be a little bit intimidating. There's a lot of numbers as well. But just by looking at, you can look at the fall and the spring, the year total, and here it's broken down by the year. So this number divided by 2 is $10,722 per semester. So now we can figure out how much money I'm going to need, or how much money I'm going to have left now that I have the money in my pocket and the money that I have to pay to the university. And by doing a simple subtraction, you can figure out how much money you're going to need or have a surplus. In this case, the student, after paying for their entire tuition for a semester, they had a balance left of $4,480 per semester. This seems like a pretty good case, but remember, we still haven't taken care of all of the indirect costs. But the good news is that tuition has been taken care of. And after this is when you start to ask yourself these questions. For example, let's say if you were living with your parents in Denton, you're not gonna need to worry about paying for housing and maybe room and board. Who knows what arrangement you may have. But that might lead you to not have to take out of your financial aid. So this is where you ask I have all this money left. Maybe I don't need to take any of the loans. It's on a case by case situation. But if you didn't, how are you going to pay for room and board? This is where you realize that you might have to take those. You're gonna have to make it work with those $4,000 that you have left. Books, transportation, miscellaneous. This is where you look at the money that you have saved, the type of employment you're going to get to be able to pay for your needs every month. And for example, in this case, the student had to pay still $7,718 per semester to cover each semester of indirect costs according to the university. That means that after that, the student was missing $3,237 to cover all of their indirect costs. So this is where savings and a job comes into play, all the money that you had saved. But again, it's on a case-by-case scenario. And this is why we're here, to help students figure out all of their expenses and how they're going to pay for college. Because as you guys have seen, it's not an easy question, and it varies a lot by each student's situation. And that's why we're here. And remember that a lot of times you can save money in these indirect costs. For example, in housing and meals, you're going to pay less rent if you move with 3 other roommates than getting your own apartment. You're going to save more money by cooking your own meals rather than buying a meal plan. All those things you need to consider and compare costs. Last but not least, remember that the final takeaway is that a penny saved is a penny earned. That's a penny that you don't have to look for in your bank account. And this is how we finish the presentation. And this is our social media, Juan.
Yeah, so thank you all again for joining us today. We hope we were able to answer any questions in this presentation, and we hope this information does provide some guidance for you guys, for you and your students in college. I do want to mention, feel free, if you want to take a picture of this, feel free to follow us on every social media account. We oftentimes put a lot of important information such as financial aid deadlines, important information regarding school events and also events that we host throughout the semester. This semester we are hosting our Money Month Fest, which basically we're going to be doing hosting a number of multiple fun events throughout the month of April, basically teaching students about financial literacy and giving them guidance on how to better manage their money. We're going to be doing fun activities such as, I think, for example, one of the activities we're going to be doing piggy bank painting, all while they learn how to better allocate their money. So feel free to follow us, encourage your students to follow us, and keep up to date with everything that we do at the center. And at the bottom, you also see our email, our phone number, our location. We're located at Chestnut Hall, Suite 115. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us. So at this point, if you have any questions, we will try our best to answer them. So yeah, that concludes our presentation.
Well, thank you, Juan and Rodolfo, so much for being with us tonight. And thank you all, parents and family members. If there are any last minute questions, I'm sure they can stay just a few more minutes if you want to send those in the chat or the Q&A. But to keep going, if you all want to join us again in February for our next Mean Green Family Live webinar, we'll be discussing job opportunities and working as a student with the Career Center, so you can help encourage your Eagle to keep the semester going strong with some new opportunities. But as we wait for a few more questions, I did want to share a few events that we have coming up for the Office of Orientation and Transition Programs, specifically with parent programming. We have a sibling day coming up on February 26th. So if any of your students have younger or older siblings who want to come and spend a day on campus, there'll be some fun events around campus throughout the day on the 26th, and capped off with a basketball game here on UNT's campus. So if you want to sign up for that, you can go to our website, transition.unt.edu. And again, if we have any questions after this presentation, I left the information for our office, the contact information in the chat. It's just parents@unt.edu, as well as our phone number. And yes, this session is being recorded. It will be going on YouTube and our website tomorrow. So if there's no questions, I will let you guys go. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And if there are any questions after this, you can contact the OTP office or the Student Money Management Center, and any of us would be happy to help you. Thank you, everyone.